Well, let's send out to Tony Berger Stadium in South Austin right now and welcome in the one and only, the Foss, Steve Foster, to Sports Talk as he's getting ready to call a high school game here in the South Austin area involving Bowie. No, not the Bowie Bears. This is the Austin version of Bowie High School, right?
Correct. The Bulldogs.
All right. The Bulldogs. Who's favored? Actually, it's high school football. Nobody's favored. There's no odds. Hey, you know that years ago, they used to be serious gambling on high school football in the state of Texas, and they would actually have odds on the games and stuff we probably should never talk about on the radio, but it happened years ago.
So that could be, probably back when I was, God, I hope I didn't lose any money for anybody.
Maybe you made money for people. That'd be good.
That's what I want to
know. Somebody says, hey, I bought this really sweet 280ZX back in 84 thanks to Foss's big performance at Eastwood High. How do you like that?
There you go. I would love it, man. Especially closer to where you grew up. We had a very favorable game our senior year against Bel Air. So hopefully somebody put it down on that. That was a guarantee.
Hey, when you were a senior that year in 84, what was the car you wanted the most? What was like your dream car that year?
Well, I'm a big Smokey and the Bandit fan. I love that movie. It's in my top 5. And the Trans Am, baby. Yep.
The Trans Am from Smokey and the Bandit. That's cool. So, yeah, I was really into the Knight Rider kit car back in those days. So that was a black Pontiac Trans Am. The only difference is that car talked and that car did really cool stunts and would always make big leaps every week on the show. So that's what that was the thing I wanted. I wanted a talking car that drove itself.
Well, here's the thing, Cappy. I was my family was big in Citizens Band radio, or better known as CB radio.
Yes.
So my mom and dad living on the East Coast, we always would drive to Jersey from El Paso, if you can imagine that one.
Yep.
So as a kid, my handle, everybody, Breaker 19, for Cappy, Breaker 19. Well, I was the chocolate chip. And I would always want the 18-wheelers to honk like BJ and the Bear back in the day and make that noise. But,
I love it.
Of course, Smokey and the Bandit, you had the Snowman. So, yeah, that was me, man.
You were the chocolate chip. All right.
Yes.
I love it. Hey, your predictions came true on the Monday Night Football game, by the way. Cowboys defense looked great, especially in the second half when they really opened it up. You look at Dak and company, and I don't want to say that they made it look easy, but in a way they really did. And they took control of that football game, made Jalen Hurts' life miserable, and in the process, really kind of became that team that a lot of people expect to be right there at the top of the NFC East when it's all said and done.
Well, I think one thing is that Dan Quinn has simplified the defense. So you can just be an athlete with some will and some heart and desire to play the position. Listen, effectively, you're just spreading out 11 people to stop different areas of the offense, trying to put the ball in by the pass or the run.
Mm-hmm.
And then you bring a guy in like Diggs to play corner who is a baller. Now with any type of upfield rush, you have some quality guys that can stay with the receiver, can catch the ball like a receiver, not having it come off somebody's hands, because it's great that you're in the area as a defensive back, but if you can catch it and create a turnover, that's double the pleasure when you're looking at that aspect of the game.
All right, now listen, I know he came from Alabama and the pedigree's there. All right, so let's just preface it by saying that he's an Alabama guy, played for Nick Saban. That being said, did you expect Trayvon Diggs to be this good out of the gate here in 2021?
Well, he had the ability because he's not doing a lot of thinking. He's just playing football. And if you have the speed, the biggest thing on every level, as you know, Cappy, is the speed of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can keep up with the speed, and of course, you have training camp and preseason games to acknowledge that, and you're playing at one of the highest levels in college football, there's not such a huge gap in understanding the speed. And probably you've covered some of those guys. like the Heisman Trophy winner on the other side for Philadelphia, Devonta Smith. So we've seen him in practice. So again, you get some confidence because of the memory. We always talk about muscle memory. Well, that brain recognizing the memory that you covered some of the better players on the planet, and you just have a little confidence and less to concern yourself about in a playbook. If you're a defensive guy, I think your attributes athletically can shine.
Meanwhile, Dak looks like he's continuing where he took off before the injury last year. He looks very good. Did have the fumble deep in his own territory, and that was a concern, obviously, for the Cowboys because the Eagles pounced right on it. But when you look at the way Prescott's played, he looks confident. He looks healthy, and that offense is clicking with him back there the way it did, the last couple of years.
Well, as I mentioned to Adrian, if you put the two tight end set on the field and you've got guys that are reasonably mobile that can block just half as well as a Jason Witten did throughout his Hall of Fame career, it gives you a balance where you can run either left or right, but it gives you four receivers on the line of scrimmage: Lamb, Cooper, Schultz, Darwin, and then you get Pollard and Zeke catching and running the ball. Now you pretty much have to play the Cowboys straight up. If you double team somebody, that's going to leave an advantage to one of these playmakers. And as you saw, Schultz can catch the ball. We knew Jarwin could catch the ball from the tight end spot. You got that Alabama guy, Amari Cooper, and then CeeDee Lamb. 2 first-round draft picks as receivers, a first-round draft pick in Zeke Elliott, who does look motivated, and he'll be motivated by Pollard, who wants to get re-signed by the Cowboys, and he's pushing Zeke. Absolutely he is. And then Dak says, hey, I want to earn my money. He couldn't wait to get back on the field. He's that kind of guy.
As we continue right now here with the Foss, Steve Foster on Sports Talk, talking about the Cowboys as he gets ready to call a high school football game in a little bit from Austin, Texas. They're so banged up. Like if you look at the Cowboys depth chart right now, there's a ton of guys on the 2 deep that are out with injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They got, starters galore that are out and some backups as well. So, the good news for the Cowboys is at least their playmakers have been healthy and their playmakers have been making plays. Give me your thoughts on the big move, switching Micah Parsons to the line, and really how that's been proving huge right now for this Cowboys defense.
We got a real young player who's come in highly.
Steve, you muted yourself. I don't know if you can hear me, but you actually, there you go. Now you got it. There you go. Go ahead.
You're going to have a guy like Randy Gregory being able to get on that other side. And, competition begets competition. And so Micah Parsons is probably running it a little bit saying, hey, I can play DE. I can get to those quarterbacks. Sam Darnold doesn't impress me. Again, the Jets, Texans, and Saints, is that really a knock 'em down lineup in the NFL? No. So I think Micah Parsons, all he sees is opportunity.
Well, let's put it this way. Darnold looks like a different quarterback with Carolina than he did with the Jets because, number one, he's got an offensive line. Number two, he had a running back until McCaffrey got hurt again. He has some good weapons to throw the ball to. And again, I look at a guy that's 24 years old and Sam Darnold. He didn't have anything around him in New York. Nothing. You put a supporting cast around him, and now he's starting to do, at least early on, some of the things you expected him to do as a Jets franchise quarterback that he never showed. So I don't know so much if it's a knock on the opponents of Carolina. I think it's just he has much more to work around him there than he ever did with New York. And you're smiling. So go ahead.
The Jets haven't been good since Richard Todd. That's an Alabama quarterback that people don't realize.
Hey, Kenny O'Brien wasn't half bad. Give me Kenny O'Brien for a couple of seasons. He was fine. And you know what?
I went with Richard Todd because most people know probably Kenny O'Brien more than they know Richard Todd. But actually, Richard Todd was pretty nice.
Well, let me say this about Richard Todd, okay? Number one, Richard Todd had Freeman McNeil. Richard Todd had Wesley Walker. Richard
Yes.
Todd had the New York Sack Exchange on defense. He had
He had Klecko. He had Klecko. Oh yeah, man.
And Gastineau, and he had a head coach in
Gastineau.
Walt Michaels. So he had good pieces back in the early 80s.
That's why I said that the Jets were only, I had to roll it back to there. That's just for all those history books.
You realize that Sanchez took the Jets to a pair of AFC title games, right? They 2 AFC championship games, which nobody remembers because they didn't win them.
That's right. That's right. But really, the consistency of O'Brien and Todd lasted more than 2 years.
It did. It did. All right, back to Carolina for a second, all right? So
Yes.
You tell me, you're not worried about at all the Panthers on the offensive side of the ball. How do they play the Cowboys defensively?
I think you're just going to have to play Dallas even up. Because if you try, Dak is smart enough. He works hard at his craft enough that if you try to jump one of his guys, he's got 3 other quick options.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the beauty of his offense. He doesn't have to have a favorite target per se. He does like throwing to CeeDee Lamb in certain occasions downfield. He's young. Go get it. Cooper, well-polished route runner. But Darwin and Schultz can get open 15 yards down the field and create mismatches. So what are you going to try to take away? And, oh, by the way, my running backs can catch the ball out in little flare patterns and get me 15, because what's that linebacker going to do? If you run out to the flat, what if I take Zeke or Pollard, have them open up left, you run out to the flats thinking they're going to flare, and I hand the ball off on an inside running play, pulling one of my guards, I've got a hole as big as Texas on the opposite side of the line. It's going to be real tough. You don't have to get fancy. You just need to move the ball around, which I think Kellen has done as an offensive coordinator, and I think everybody prospers because of it.
I'll say this. I like Shaq Thompson on defense. Hassan Reddick is off to a great start this year with 4.5 sacks. He's had a sack and a half in every game played. So they've got a couple of linebackers that are serious playmakers, which really does add a little intrigue into this matchup.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. You haven't heard, I mean, at least last game, you didn't hear a lot about Vander Esch or Jalen Smith, but that's great because they were doing what they were supposed to do, and maybe they were taking all of the spotlight, which allowed others to go one-on-one, win those battles against their opponents and make plays.
Thoughts on Chuba Hubbard, who's going to be replacing McCaffrey at running back this week?
Well, if he's the Chuba Hubbard of 2 or 3 seasons ago, who led the NCAA in rushing at Okie State, then you're going to have to at least tackle him at the point of contact. If not, he's still good enough. He's not Christian McCaffrey. Don't get me wrong. But he might get you 10, 12 points in fantasy.
All right. So when it's all said and done, it's the early game this week, and the Cowboys go out and play Carolina. What are you expecting, especially when DeMarcus Ware says earlier this week that he sees something special in Micah Parsons? So the hype machine is already there. They're coming off the big win against Philly. They got the undefeated Panthers coming to Dallas. Do you think it'll be an easy game, or do you think that the Panthers will give them a pretty good fight?
Well, I was very surprised that Dallas handled Philadelphia as well as they did last week. And I don't know how much Carolina is much better than Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. So I think Dallas continues to roll. I think they win. How well they win, how much they win. Sports is kind of a fickle thing. If Dallas says, we really want to make a statement, they could win by 2 touchdowns, or they wind up winning by a field goal.
Foss, I'm looking forward to seeing how this one goes down. Have a good call tonight yourself, and you're already in, I could see, midseason high school form in the Austin area. We'll look forward to having you back to El Paso here, hopefully before the end of the year.
Absolutely, man. Cappy, as you know, love the hometown. If y'all missed the Aaron Jones special that they did with him and the gentleman from San Antonio, with the sombreros and everything, was a really cool story that finally showed El Paso on Monday night in prime time. and gave the city and our home a really good look that people do recognize talent that comes from the 915 in the city limits of El Paso.
I heard Jones give an interview recently and say that he heard about the legend of Steve Foster when he was playing high school football in El Paso. He needed to make sure that he shattered all of his records. Is that true? Was Aaron Jones making it personal when it came to making sure that all of Foss's Eastwood records were broken when he was in high school?
Hey, look, someone is always going to come along and do better. It's great to know, Cappy, that he came from the east side of town as opposed to, respectfully, your side of town.
Yeah, he came from Central. Yeah, Central.
No!
Burgess is not
Burgess
east
is
side
right
anymore.
No,
it's Central.
It's right next door to Eastwood, and we all go to Cielo Vista Mall. So stop.
No. Listen.
Check that.
The city's changed. The city has changed since you've last been here. It's grown, and you know what? That area used to be east. Now it's kind of like right in the middle of town, Foss.
Okay, East Central, whatever you want to call it.
Crying out loud! You know what?
They're neighbors. We're neighbors. Our high school's boundaries butt up to each other, so we're neighbors.
There you go. All right, listen. Good job.
I love you, man.
You're the best. I just try to get a good rise out of you, and then I forget. Wait a minute. He's an attorney. He'll argue me till the very end of the segment to make sure we get this done. All right. Nicely done. We'll see you next week. Thanks for the time, Foss.
Sounds good. All right. And to everybody in El Paso, much love and have a great weekend.